Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to look at how to make a grotesque interpretation of the character Gudetama. So let's dive in. Per usual, we're going to start by crumbling up a little ball of aluminum foil that will serve as the sculpture's core, rolling it into a cylindrical shape. And from there we can cover it with polymer clay. This is a small sculpture, so it doesn't take very long at all to block in his basic egg yolk shape. Once he's covered in a base layer, we'll go ahead and smooth that out. And then going in with our trusty back of the paintbrush tool, we can rough in some indications of eyes and a mouth. Of course, taking a couple clay balls for his rotund buttocks, blending them in with the back of the paintbrush tool. One of the things I always love about the Gudetama character is how anguished and depressed he looks all the time. So for this interpretation, I'm really going to accentuate that, arching his back and creating the impression that he's really struggling to escape his shell prison. We'll take another little clay ball and flesh out the back of his head, then a little clay snake below it, blend it in to create that sort of back of the head wrinkle that you see on bald people. From there we can go in and deepen his mouth, carving out some lip and double chin lines. And then using two little clay snakes, we can create the indication of gums, blending them in with the paddle tool. While we're at it, we'll go ahead and carve in some indications of eye bags as well. We'll add two more clay balls for his cheeks, and another thin snake below his lip to create a chin, blending it all in with the back of the paintbrush and the paddle tool. It was around this point that I decided, because he's sort of a viscous, semi-solid character, he should be a little asymmetrical. So using the back of the paintbrush, I elongate one of his eyes and then counterbalance that by pulling down the lip on the other side. If this were an art history lesson, you could call this a loose interpretation of the concept of contrapposto. From there, we'll add a few more clay snakes around his base to create a pooled melting effect, as well as some little droplet shapes. His arms are short and stubby, so they don't need an armature. I'm simply taking two thin snakes of clay, rolling them out, and blending them into the rest of the body, and then using the paddle tool to carve in the indication of a few more yolk drips below his arm. I didn't get the footage on camera, but I also inserted teeth made from pre-baked bits of polymer clay, stuck into the gums with a tweezer. Then we brush down the whole sculpture with isopropyl alcohol. This is a very smooth character, so I want to remove any indication of tool marks or fingerprints. And with that, we're ready to move on to paint. I'm basing out the character in white. He'll eventually be yellow, but yellow for whatever reason and whatever brand I use is notoriously difficult to get a solid coat. As this worked out, I only ended up needing to do 2 coats of white and 1 coat of yellow. Once the yellow is fully applied, we'll go in with a slightly orangey wash to bring out the wrinkles and recesses in the sculpture, followed by a light dry brush of a brighter yellow to bring out the highlights. From there we'll go in with a finer brush and a deep black to paint in the hollows of his eyes and the inside of his mouth. Picking up the gums with a nice pinkish red, and then highlighting each individual tooth with pure white. I generally favor a matte finish with most of my sculpts, it's just an aesthetic preference of mine, but in this case, to help sell the viscousness of the egg yolk, I've decided to varnish the entire sculpture with a liquid polyurethane. Now it's time to make Gudetama's home. Birthplace? Home? Whatever. Anyway, we'll start by cracking an egg. I wash the shell off and dry it out in the oven at 200 degrees for about 15 minutes, which strengthens it and prepares it to glue down to the base. A little bit of super glue to place Gudetama inside the shell, and dress some extra shell remnants around to make it look like he's just crawled out and is begging desperately for life. And then finally, to really sell the yolkiness, we'll go in with some UV resin. This is my first time playing with UV resin, and I really enjoyed working with it. I'll probably use it again in future sculptures. And with that, our grotesque interpretation of Gudetama is done. So let's take a look at the finished sculpture. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing for more content. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.